What if every punishment you have ever received from the universe was not a curse, but a form of mercy? Think about it. Every time you've suffered, something in you shifted, sometimes painfully, sometimes quietly, but it changed you. Behind the mask of misfortune, could there be a deeper intelligence, a sacred mechanism designed to awaken you? In the ancient world, divine punishment was never seen as random wrath from above. It was the language of the cosmos, a way the universe whispered, "You have strayed from harmony." The gods did not punish to destroy. They corrected imbalance, restored order, and brought consciousness back to its rightful path. But somewhere along history, this wisdom was lost. We began to fear divine punishment as vengeance. We imagined gods hurling thunderbolts from the sky, condemning us for our sins. We forgot that the true judgment of heaven is not about retribution, but reflection. Every fall from grace, every heartbreak, every collapse, they are signals. Each one says, "Wake up, return to alignment." In this video, we will unveil what ancient mystics, philosophers, and initiates truly meant by divine punishment. We'll journey through ancient civilizations, from Egypt and Greece to the hidden chambers of esoteric Christianity and Hermeticism, to decode the cosmic logic behind suffering. And then, we will go deeper. You will see how divine punishment operates not as a punishment at all, but as a sacred mirror, reflecting your inner state, forcing evolution where comfort would have kept you asleep. By the end of this exploration, you may begin to see your own pain differently, not as proof that the universe is against you, but as evidence that it deeply cares for your awakening. Because the divine never punishes to hurt, it corrects to heal. In every ancient civilization, the idea of divine punishment held a sacred place, not as a superstition, but as a profound reflection of cosmic law. The ancients understood what most modern minds have forgotten, that the universe itself is a living, intelligent order. Every thought, word, and deed echoes through it, and whatever falls out of balance must inevitably return to equilibrium. The Egyptians called this principle Ma'at, the eternal law of harmony and truth. Meshet governed everything, from the movement of stars to the ethics of the human heart. To live against Meshet was to create imbalance, and imbalance always demanded correction. When chaos entered one's life, a loss, a plague, a fall from power, it was not the cruelty of gods, but the rebalancing of Ma'at. The punishment was the medicine. In Greece, the same principle was woven into myth. The goddess Nemesis was not a vengeful destroyer. She was the personification of cosmic justice. Her role was to restore equilibrium when hubris, the arrogance of believing oneself above the divine order, took root. When kings, heroes, or mortals defied the natural harmony, Nemesis arrived not with anger, but necessity. Divine punishment, in this view, was the universe remembering itself through human experience. The Hebrews too saw divine punishment as a tool of transformation. In the Torah, when God punishes his people, it is often described as a process of refinement, like metal in fire, purified of its impurities. The prophet Amos wrote, "You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities." Not because of rejection, but because of intimacy. Divine punishment was seen as proof of divine involvement, a sign that one was still within the circle of divine attention. Later in early Christian mysticism, punishment took on a psychological form. Thinkers like Origen and Gregory of Nyssa argued that hell itself was not eternal torment, but a purifying fire, a state of consciousness where the soul in its own suffering confronts the weight of its misdeeds and learns to realign with divine love. The punishment was not a sentence, but a therapy. The Hermetic philosophers went even deeper. They spoke of the law of correspondence, as above, so below. Whatever imbalance we create in thought manifests in the physical world. To them, divine punishment was not imposed from without, but activated from within. When one acts out of ignorance, greed, or pride, the universe reflects those vibrations back through experience, not to condemn, but to awaken. Even in Eastern traditions, the pattern repeats. The Sanskrit word karma does not mean punishment. It means action and the natural consequence of that action. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna teaches that every action plants a seed in consciousness, which must one day bear fruit, sweet or bitter, depending on its nature. Karma is not moral policing. It is the mechanical precision of divine intelligence, ensuring growth through cause and effect. Through all these traditions, whether Egyptian, Greek, Hebrew, Christian, Hermetic, Hindu, Buddhist, one truth emerges. Divine punishment is not revenge, it is education. It is the way the universe teaches beings who have forgotten the language of harmony. It is how the soul learns the sacred art of alignment, through experience, through correction, through the pain that leads to wisdom. And yet this understanding was gradually lost. When humanity became more externalized, when religion replaced inner wisdom with outer fear, divine punishment was distorted into a tool of control. The gods became tyrants and suffering became shameful. But the mystics never forgot the deeper meaning. They knew that every trial, every crisis, every so-called curse was the whisper of the divine, calling the soul back to itself. To truly understand divine punishment, we must let go of the childish idea that the universe is an angry parent scolding a disobedient child. The divine does not rage, it corrects. Its justice is not emotional, it is vibrational. The ancients saw existence as a web of energy, an interconnected field in which every being, thought, and action sends ripples through the whole. When one strand of that web vibrates out of harmony, the entire system responds. Divine punishment, therefore, is not a decree issued by a deity. It is the natural response of the cosmic field restoring balance to itself. Think of it like gravity. If you step off a cliff, gravity does not punish you. It simply acts. If you plant a poisonous seed, the soil does not curse you. It merely yields a poisonous fruit. Divine punishment follows the same logic. You are not being attacked by life. You are meeting yourself through the mirror of consequence. This is why enlightened teachers across time have insisted that everything that happens to you comes from you. Not in a moral sense, but in an energetic one. When you act, speak, or think in a way that violates harmony, whether through dishonesty, hatred, or pride, that energy cannot simply disappear. It must return to its source, carrying the imprint of its creation. The mystics called this the return of the current. Imagine throwing a stone into still water. Waves ripple outward, but eventually they come back to where they began. Every thought, every emotion, every deed you send into the universe travels this same path. When the wave returns, whether as joy, confusion, loss, or pain, it is not punishment, it is feedback. It tells you something about the vibration you released. In esoteric Christianity, this same law was hidden in Christ's words. With what measure you meet, it shall be measured to you again. The universe does not forget, not because it seeks revenge, but because it remembers wholeness, and anything that deviates from it must one day be reconciled. Let's imagine a simple example. A man lies to gain success. For a time he prospers, but his lie carries a subtle vibration of distortion. The world he builds on that distortion begins to echo back. Mistrust from others, hidden fear within himself, the collapse of relationships that once seemed solid. Eventually what he built crumbles. To the ignorant, this seems like divine punishment. To the wise, it is divine correction. The lie was never sustainable in a universe made of truth. This law applies not only to individuals but to civilizations. When empires fall, when nature revolts, when history repeats its lessons, it is the law of return unfolding on a grand scale. Humanity cannot violate harmony without consequence. War, greed, destruction, they are not just political failures. They are metaphysical imbalances, manifesting themselves in the physical world. The Hermetic masters describe this process as the circle of necessity, the endless cycle through which the soul learns balance by experiencing the results of imbalance. Each time we act out of ignorance, we sow a seed that will one day bloom into understanding. Each time we transgress against harmony, we create the very conditions that will one day teach us to love it. And this is the paradox of divine punishment. It feels like pain, but it is the hand of mercy. It appears as loss, but it is the seed of restoration. The universe allows us to suffer not to destroy us, but to illuminate us. Just as fire refines gold, so too does consequence refine the soul. Without the heat of experience, the impurities of pride, ego, and illusion could never burn away. This is why every great teacher, from Buddha to Christ to Hermes, spoke of suffering not as damnation, but as purification. The fire of divine punishment is the fire of awareness. It burns only what is false, but there is a deeper mystery still, one that most never see. What if divine punishment is not something that happens to us at all, but something we create within ourselves? The sages whispered that every soul carries within it its own judge, a spark of the divine that knows truth instinctively. When we act against that truth, we feel the weight of separation. This inner dissonance, the guilt, confusion, anxiety, and despair that follow misaligned choices, is the punishment. It is not imposed from without, it is self-generated. You do not need a God to strike you down. Your own conscience, your own higher self, will not allow you to remain in darkness forever. The divine simply amplifies what you already carry until you can no longer ignore it. Thus, divine punishment is not the voice of wrath. It is the echo of your own soul calling you back home. If the first truth of divine punishment is that it is not vengeance but correction, then the second truth is even more astonishing. There is no punishment at all, only the unveiling of truth. When the universe punishes, it does not add suffering to your life. It merely reveals what was already there, hidden beneath illusion. The pain you feel is not created by the divine. It is the resistance of your lower self against the truth that is trying to emerge. Imagine light shining into a dark room. The light is not an aggressor, yet to the eyes long accustomed to darkness, it burns. The light did not create the pain. It only revealed what was concealed. This is the nature of divine punishment. Every so-called punishment is simply the moment when truth becomes undeniable, when the mask falls, when lies collapse, when the soul can no longer pretend. The pain is not the punishment, it's the birth of clarity. Ancient mystics called this process the reckoning of the soul, not a courtroom, but a mirror. When you look into that mirror, honestly without excuses, you meet the sum of all your choices, your intentions, your hidden motives. This moment can feel terrifying. It is the soul seeing itself naked before the light of divine order. But the mystics knew this confrontation is liberation, because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the deceased stands before Ma'at, holding his heart in one hand, as it is weighed against the feather of truth. If the heart is light, free of lies, greed, and arrogance, the soul ascends. If it is heavy, the heart itself pulls the soul downward. No God condemns him. He condemns himself through the gravity of his own imbalance. Likewise, in esoteric Christianity, the final judgment is not a divine tribunal, but an awakening of consciousness. The fire that burns is the fire of truth. Our God is a consuming fire, says the scripture. That fire consumes only falsehood. It is the radiance of pure awareness dissolving everything that cannot stand in its presence. This is why enlightened beings speak of surrender. When you surrender to truth, divine punishment ceases instantly, because there is nothing left to punish. The universe does not punish obedience to its laws. It only corrects dissonance. So what are these laws? They are not religious rules written by human institutions. They are the laws of energy, resonance, and consciousness, eternal principles that govern the harmony of existence. The law of correspondence. What is above reflects what is below. Your outer life mirrors your inner state. If you are in chaos within, your world will echo it. The law of cause and effect. Every action, thought, or emotion sets a chain in motion. Nothing escapes this law. Even inaction is an action with its own consequence. The law of resonance. You attract experiences that match your vibration. Divine punishment is simply the arrival of a frequency that matches what you have been radiating unconsciously. The law of balance. Nature abhors extremes. Every excess, whether of pride, greed, or attachment, summons the opposite force to restore equilibrium. When we violate these laws, the universe does not retaliate, it recalibrates. It sends situations, people, or crises that mirror back the disharmony we have created. What we call bad luck is often divine geometry reasserting itself. This also explains why two people can experience the same event, a loss, a breakup, a failure, and interpret it in entirely different ways. One curses fate, the other awakens. The difference lies not in what happens, but in whether one sees through the eyes of ego or the eyes of soul. From the level of the ego, divine punishment seems cruel. From the level of the soul, it is sacred surgery, removing illusions so that truth can live. Consider this. A teacher may allow a student to fail a test, not to shame them, but to reveal what they have not yet learned. The failure exposes the gaps that must be filled. Life works the same way. Every fall, every punishment is simply the revelation of what remains unmastered. In Buddhist philosophy, this truth is captured in the word dukkha, the suffering inherent in resistance to the natural flow. Life punishes no one. It is our clinging that creates pain. When we align with the Dharma, the way of truth, suffering dissolves like mist under sunlight. In Hermetic alchemy, the same idea appears as the purification of lead into gold. The lead represents the dense, unrefined aspects of the self: ignorance, ego, fear. The fire of divine correction melts these impurities, allowing the hidden gold, the higher self, to shine forth. The alchemist is not destroyed by the fire, he is transformed by it. The mystic secret is this: you do not need to fear divine punishment. You need to listen to it, because every punishment carries a message. And if you understand the message, the punishment ends. When the soul learns the lesson, the pain no longer has a purpose. The storm stops when the imbalance it came to correct has been restored. This is why the wise learn to welcome their trials. They say, "This too is the voice of the divine." They look at the chaos and ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" And in that moment of humility, the universe smiles, for understanding is the highest form of repentance. In truth, divine punishment is not about fear or guilt. It is about remembering who you are. A soul out of harmony with its own nature feels punishment as suffering. A soul aligned with its essence feels the same force as grace. Therefore, divine punishment and divine love are not opposites. They are two faces of the same law. One corrects, the other rewards. Both aim for awakening. So far, we've uncovered that divine punishment is not vengeance. It is alignment. It's the echo of your own vibration returning to teach you balance. But philosophy alone is not enough. To truly transform your relationship with this cosmic law, you must live it. Let's explore how to turn this understanding into practice, how to transform moments of suffering into moments of awakening, and how to recognize divine punishment not as a curse, but as a sacred conversation between you and the universe. 1. The first step: pause and witness the pattern. When something painful enters your life, a betrayal, failure, or loss, resist the instinct to label it as unfair. Instead, pause. Observe it as a mirror. Ask yourself, what vibration in me has called this into being? This question is not about blame. It's about consciousness. Every pattern you experience is the external echo of an internal frequency. The person who abandons you may reflect your own hidden fear of being unworthy. The loss of stability may reveal your dependency on control. The moment you see the pattern, you rise above it. You step out of the role of the punished and into the role of the witness, the soul observing its own evolution. 2. The second step: listen for the message beneath the pain. Every punishment conceals a teaching. The universe does not send random suffering. It sends precision-crafted lessons for your growth. Ask in meditation or silence, if this pain had a voice, what would it be trying to tell me? Often the message will come as a subtle knowing, a realization, a memory, a truth you've avoided. It may whisper, "You must speak your truth," or "You cannot build peace on self-betrayal," or simply "Let go." By turning toward the pain rather than away from it, you convert punishment into revelation. 3. The third step: Transmute resistance into acceptance. Suffering is prolonged not by what happens, but by our resistance to it. The universe corrects through movement, and resistance freezes that flow. To end the punishment, you must dissolve resistance. This doesn't mean passive submission. It means active surrender, a deep inner yes to what is. In practical terms, try this simple exercise. Sit in silence. Breathe deeply. Whisper inwardly, I allow this moment to be as it is. Feel your body unclench, your thoughts soften, your heart expand. In that instant, the energy that once felt like punishment begins to flow again. What was once pain becomes purification. 4. The fourth step, repair the disharmony. Every punishment points toward an imbalance that needs correction. Once you've recognized the pattern and accepted the lesson, act upon it. If your suffering stems from deceit, practice honesty. If it comes from greed, practice generosity. If it arises from control, practice trust. If it was born from neglect, practice care. This is how you repay your karmic debt. Not through guilt, but through conscious compensation. The act of restoration realigns your vibration with harmony. You may visualize this as balancing scales within your heart. Each right action, however small, restores the equilibrium that divine punishment came to teach. 5. The fifth step, transform suffering into gratitude. Gratitude is the alchemical solvent that transforms punishment into blessing. At first, this seems impossible. How can one be grateful for pain? Yet every awakened soul eventually realizes the most painful chapters were the most transformative. The heartbreak that opened the heart, the loss that revealed strength, the failure that birthed humility. To cultivate this awareness, end each day with this reflection. What in my day seemed like punishment, but might actually be guidance? Write it down. Speak it aloud. With repetition, your perception changes. You begin to see every hardship as evidence that the divine has not abandoned you. It is training you. 6. The sixth step, build harmony before correction arrives. The highest form of wisdom is prevention, not reaction. And once you understand how the cosmic law works, you can live in harmony with it. This means, be mindful of the energy you release through thought, word, and action. Treat others as extensions of yourself, because energetically they are. Avoid the arrogance of believing you can cheat cosmic law. Every shortcut becomes a detour. Every lie must one day be unlearned. Develop a daily practice of self-inquiry. Am I living in resonance with truth? You'll find that when you live honestly, gently, and consciously, divine punishment becomes unnecessary. The universe no longer needs to correct what is already in balance. 7. The seventh step, remember, the judge is within. In truth, the divine does not sit above you, ready to strike. The true judge is your own higher consciousness, that spark of divinity within that cannot tolerate falsehood. When you feel guilt, shame, or inner unease, do not drown it out with distraction. That is your inner divine voice speaking, the same force that ancient traditions called punishment. It is not against you. It is you. Sit with it. Ask what it needs. When you respond with honesty and humility, the voice quiets and peace returns. 8. The eighth step, practice the art of realignment. The greatest secret of spiritual maturity is knowing how to realign quickly when imbalance appears. When you fall, apologize. When you err, correct it. When you hurt, heal it. When you drift, return. Divine punishment only continues when we delay this process. The moment you sincerely return to alignment, the law fulfills itself, and peace resumes. In the Hermetic teachings, this is called the completion of the circle. Every act of realignment closes the loop of karma. The punishment ends because its purpose is complete. 9. The ninth step, transcend the concept altogether. At the highest level of consciousness, the concept of punishment dissolves completely. You realize that nothing ever happened to you. Everything happened for you. From this vantage point, you no longer see suffering as something to escape, but as a sacred tool of evolution. Each challenge becomes a doorway, each obstacle a teacher. You begin to thank the universe for every correction because you see it as a sign of divine involvement, proof that you are still being guided toward your highest potential. The mystics called this state equanimity, the stillness of a soul that trusts the order of things. Final practical reflection. If you remember nothing else, remember this. The universe never punishes. It educates. The wise do not ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What is this teaching me?" And when that question becomes your habit, you no longer need punishment to evolve because you are already listening to the language of the divine. Divine punishment is not the wrath of a god. It is the rhythm of a living universe that refuses to let any soul remain asleep forever. It is the thunder that follows lightning, not out of cruelty, but because that is what balance requires. Throughout history, mystics have whispered the same truth. The divine never stops loving, even when it corrects. The pain we call punishment is the shadow cast by love too bright for us to bear. It burns away our illusions, not our worth. It destroys only what cannot endure the truth. When you begin to see punishment in this way, your relationship with suffering changes completely. You no longer see the universe as hostile, but as intimately involved in your awakening. Every fall becomes an initiation. Every hardship, a hidden ceremony of purification. Consider the words of Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you. This is the essence of divine punishment. The moment the light pierces through the layers of ignorance and pride that separate you from your true nature. The wound hurts only because we resist what seeks to heal us. Imagine your life as a spiral, not a straight line. Each time you ignore the lesson, life circles back, perhaps with more intensity, more urgency. Not because you have failed, but because the lesson is essential to your evolution. The universe will repeat its messages until they are understood. When they are, the cycle ends. What once felt like punishment becomes liberation. In this sense, even the darkest trials are sacred. They reveal where your energy is misaligned, where your heart has hardened, where you've forgotten who you are. They are invitations, or not to suffer, but to return to harmony. The Buddha called this the turning of the wheel. When ignorance ceases, so does the wheel of suffering. Christ called it the forgiveness of sins, which literally means the release of karmic weight. Hermes Trismegistus called it the great work, the inner alchemy through which lead becomes gold and the human becomes divine. And so the real question is never, why is this happening to me? The real question is, what part of me is being invited to awaken? Every moment of pain, every wave of loss, every divine correction is a summons from your higher self, a sacred reminder that you are not meant to live in distortion. The universe is not against you. It is with you, even when it seems harsh. It breaks what is false so that truth may stand. When you reach this understanding, fear disappears. You no longer dread punishment because you see it for what it truly is, a dialogue between your soul and the infinite. The punishments that once felt unbearable now appear as grace in disguise. The betrayals that broke you reveal the lessons that made you wise. The chaos that terrified you becomes the storm that washed your vision clean. And one day, quietly, almost imperceptibly, you will look back and realize nothing was ever taken from you. Only illusions were burned away. Only falsehoods were destroyed. Only the unnecessary was stripped so that the essential could emerge. This is the real meaning of divine punishment. It is not destruction, it is refinement. It is not cruelty, it is compassion wearing a difficult face. It is not the end of grace, it is grace itself, disguised as pain. So the next time life burns, instead of asking, why me, whisper, what is being purified? Because to the awakened heart, even fire is holy.